Hi, I'm Gretchen Rivas with Relax to the Max Massage Therapy, and today we're going to be talking about how to give a face massage. Whenever you're working with a client in a face massage, we'd like to start out with a few nice gentle strokes first. Just kind of get them used to your hands. And it's nice to take your thumbs and work with a little more pressure over the eyebrow area. And you can also work around the cheekbones too. Some pressure through here around the nose. It's nice. It always feels really good to have your temples rubbed. So give a little bit of extra time for that, especially if they suffer from headaches. Then move on down to the ears, massage on each side of the ears. Give a little ear massage too while you're in there, in that area. And then you want to stroke down along the jaw. Work this area through here. Rub the cheeks. Use your palms over the forehead with a few strokes. And it doesn't hurt to go ahead and do a little bit of lifting up of the facial skin. This helps with the production of collagen, helps give that youthful appearance. Then a few more strokes over the face. And some nice, gentle overall stroking. This is very soothing and relaxing. Whenever you're working with someone on their back, you do want to put a little oil on them because it doesn't feel really good to have it done on dry skin. You want to spread it out in a nice, smooth manner. You don't want to, a lot of times people will sometimes just do this type of thing, and you really don't want that. You want a nice, smooth, spreading motion when you're putting on your oil. It feels really nice to run 2 fingers down each side of the spine. Whenever you're working on the back, you want to be careful not to rub on bone because that's not very comfortable for the client. But you want to come around the shoulder blades. You can kind of come down along the edges of the spine and back up through around the shoulder blade area. Work that through there. And it always feels good too to do some what we call cross fiber friction, which is where you go in the opposite way of which the muscle runs, because that helps break up muscle fibers and adhesions that can cause pain. So always go down each side of the spine, come back up through the ribs and the waist, and around the shoulder blades like this, and then back up around through the neck. Another thing that feels really good too is if somebody has low back issues, if you come back up through, deep in at the waist through here, a lot of times the low back stuff is deep within, so you want to kind of come up through there and see if that's where some of their pain might be coming from. Work deep in on the sacral area and rub on this low back area. Usually feels really good for people if they have low backache. Back and forth across the back. And then stroke down both sides of the spine and come back up around. Down through again. And over and around. When you're working on the neck and shoulder area, what you want to do is make sure that you oil them up a little bit. And I already have enough oil on right now that we don't want to add any more. So you don't want to add so much oil that you're going to be sliding off the client. You want enough to have a nice little bit of a glide. When you're working around the shoulder area, you want to come up through and up through the shoulders into the neck. You can make a fist and work around the neck area through here. It kind of gives some release in the shoulders and the neck area at the same time. One thing that feels really good is when you come around the shoulder blade and then up through the neck at the same time in a nice soothing circular stroking motion. You can also get in here around the shoulder blade between the spine and that shoulder blade bone. People carry a lot of tension in there. So you can work through that and also on top of the scapula. You can rub that and work in that area through there, press through here, and that'll often give a lot of release and relief for that neck and shoulder area. Now, Swedish massage is characterized by long flowing strokes over the entire body. Of course, it's not all at one time, but you work in the areas and you do effleurage and petrissage and kneading and stroking that feels good to the client. Deep tissue work is not usually part of Swedish massage unless somebody's coming in and asking for that. So usually when I'm giving a Swedish massage, I make sure that the strokes are long and flowing and connecting for the client. And it's something that would feel really good. So when you're looking for a Swedish massage from somebody, you do want something that's not real choppy, not real uncomfortable in any way. And Swedish massage should be comfortable and relaxing. It soothes and de-stresses, gets tension out, and helps the body feel good in a number of different ways. So when you're giving a Swedish massage, you want to do those long flowing strokes. Do a little bit of kneading, maybe a little bit of cross fiber friction, which is going against the muscle fibers. And that helps open the body up. Makes the muscles relax and give in a little bit more. When you're working with hot stones, you want to heat them up first. And when you get them out, sometimes they're still pretty warm. So you can always dip them in a little bit of cool water first before you put them on your client. Dry them off on your towel. Have these stones that are already oiled. And you want to work with stones that will fit nicely into the palm of your hand. And you want to rub along the muscles and not on the spine. See, when I'm working here on the shoulder blades, I'm not on the edge or anything here where it would be hurtful, just on the muscular part. So you can go down along this. Hot stones are very good for relaxing deeper muscle tissue fibers and really helping the client relax on a deeper level. So you work with the stones until they cool off a little bit. And then what you do is you'll just set these aside and grab the next set of hot stones that you have ready. I have these ready here. They're still a little bit warm, so we'll cool them off real quickly. Oil them up. And then go back to work with them. You can do this on the legs, on the arms, any part of the body that isn't real bony. Be careful working in like the anterior portion of the legs and certain parts of the forearm. You don't want to rub real hard with stones against bone. But in the muscular areas, it feels really good. And you do want to go get stones that are made for this. You can order them through magazines. You can order them from online. You can go to Bed Bath & Beyond and get a little starter set. Although those are just river stones, they're not really the best stones for holding heat. And you can just collect your stones from different areas. But it feels really nice, especially in the winter or when somebody's really stressed out. Hot stones help them relax. Now I'm thinking most people don't have massage chairs like I have at their office or at home. So we're going to do this in a regular chair where you might find most people sitting at the computer or just sitting at their office wishing somebody would come by and rub their neck and shoulders. So just go ahead and drop your head a little bit there. So when you're working on somebody like that, you can work through clothes. You don't have to have anything special, any special oils or anything like that. Just come through and kind of work a little bit on the back. And when you're doing that, you can use your loose fist right here and just press in to the muscles in the back area. You can rub through the neck like this a little bit. And rub especially along the occipital area here at the base of the skull. Feels really good. And what I like to do is do a little lift where you just kind of use the forehead and the base of the skull and lift up. That kind of relieves a lot of tension in people's neck and helps them. You can do a little squeeze in the trap area and down the arms. Feels good. Stretch them back a little bit. Open up that pec area and rub this right here on people. That usually helps. And just kind of work that and squeeze it a little bit and rub some. And I never want you to stop because that's how it feels. It's good. Whenever you're working on the main parts of the body, you do want to use a little bit of an oil. There's a lot of different types of massage oil out there. I use a fractionated coconut oil because it's light and it doesn't leave the client with a lot of greasy feeling on their body. So whenever you massage, you want to rub the oil on your hands first before you rub it on the client, especially if it's cold. You want to warm it up. When you're working on the chest, you want to come up through, over the rib cage, and then up over the pec muscles. You do want to avoid the nipples because they can be really sensitive on people. And when you're working on the chest, you can come up through the ribs a little bit, and in that pec area, open that up. Too much? Good. And come up a little bit through and under the rib cage and through the diaphragm. And then up over the chest. Kind of pull up through this way. You can go back up through the ribs one more time and down and over the chest. Depending on what's going on with your person that you're working on, it's going to change the focus of what you want to do. If their feet are just achy and sore from working and you're just trying to give them some relief from that, what you can do is go in there and squeeze the bottom of that foot, like I'm doing here. Kind of press your thumbs in there. That feels really good. You can take your fist, especially if they have a lot of callus buildup on their feet and it's hard to work on them. Using your soft fist feels nice in there on the foot. Ask them where the pain is. It might be like in the arch or it could be along the edge here. And you can always get in here on the underneath the toes and on the balls of the feet, especially if it's a woman and she wears high heels a lot. This part of the foot might be really sore. You might need to get in there a little bit deeper. And then you want to work on the top of the foot also. Loosen this area up here where all these tendons attach to the toes. Work on each toe. That helps. And especially around the ankles where everything comes together and comes down into the foot. A little pull on the leg too. And opening all these channels up for the foot will help. A little bit deeper work when you're doing therapeutic work on the foot. It helps a lot and makes the pain go away if they are suffering from any type of foot pain. Deep tissue massage is different than regular massage because it involves working on a deeper level. The focus with this work is to contact, connect, and clear and manipulate the deep muscle fibers and the connective tissue at a deeper level. The thing about deep tissue work is that you're working a lot with adhesions and chronic pain and issues that people have had for a long time where they're really stuck. And because the connective tissue has a collagen base to it, you have to warm things up and it can get really sticky and make your muscles just kind of stick in areas that they really shouldn't be and in ways that they shouldn't be sticking. So deep tissue work gets in there and opens those pathways up between muscle and fascia or connective tissue and allows the person to have more flexibility and more movement and freedom from chronic pain and other issues that they may be dealing with. And that's what deep tissue work is all about. You want to massage the foot and warm it up. And make sure when you're doing this that you're using firm pressure because people can be very ticklish here. And a lot of times if you make sure that your pressure is firm and not, light and tickly, people that normally are tickly on the feet can handle it. So you want to warm the foot up. And when you're working with deep tissue work, you're trying to get into the deeper layers of the connective tissue and the muscles. And the feet are made up of a lot of tendons and a lot of connective tissue. People get a lot of fasciitis, plantar fasciitis in the bottom of the foot. So getting in there on a deep level is very helpful. So you want to press in deeply. And you want to kind of get in here and separate between the metatarsals. And if somebody you're working on, if they have really callous feet and they are really difficult and you just can't even feel like you can get in there even with a fist, you can always use a massage tool to get in there a little more deeply and break up some adhesions. Just kind of getting in there on the plantar part of the foot. Or you can use another tool like this. Either one of these can be helpful for getting in there and doing some deeper work. Oftentimes the heel has a lot of stuff going on in it, so you can get in there and work on that along the edges of the foot here, in between the toes. The main thing what you want to do with deep tissue work is you're breaking up adhesions and letting the connective tissues soften and lengthen, and breaking up adhesions between the connective tissue and the muscle fibers also. So people that have a lot of foot pain and dysfunction in their feet, numbness or any of that, can all benefit from deep tissue work in the foot. Whenever I'm doing deep tissue, I usually use a lotion rather than an oil because it gives me a little bit more glide without making it too slippery. So you want to apply the lotion first, or the oil, and if you do use oil, it's okay, but just make sure you don't use so much that you're sliding, across the tissue, because you're not going to be able to set that intention and get that deeper work if you are too slippery. So you want to always warm your tissue up first, and as you're going over it, you use that palpation to figure out what's going on, kind of touch base in there and feel and assess and warm up the tissue first. So with deep work, you can go in with the whole leg. What we're going to do is we can start here, work a little bit on the calf, and then you can work on the hamstrings. Usually the deeper the work, you want to start here and work your way down and then clear all the way up. So we'll start with the hamstrings. You want to get in here and separate the muscles. Go in here deep and slow. Actually, maybe even a little slower than that, depending on how much, he's young, he doesn't have a lot of problems yet, which is good. But if you're working on somebody that has, is maybe a chronic pain person or an athlete and they have a lot of hamstring issues, getting in and doing this work really slowly and intentionally. And what you want to do is get in there and separate the muscle tissue from the connective tissue and remove any adhesions and loosen that up. Because connective tissue is collagen based, so as you warm that up, you can realign it and make it act differently. Muscles have a tendency to want to go back to just being the way they were, but collagen and connective tissue fibers you can realign. So you want to get in there on all these different hamstring muscles and work on those. Adductors in here, go real slow and deep. Now remember, when you're working on the inner thigh, it can be very sensitive in there, so be cognizant of that and pay attention to what your client's feedback is on that. So work through that hamstring area up to there. And it's always good to come and work around the knee area too. A lot of attachments in there. And then come down and work the calf, come up through the gastroc, up underneath, open all that area up there, get in there towards the soleus. You can always work down here also. But remember, with deep tissue work, the intention is to go slow and deep and just take your time and work on separating and soothing and smoothing out the connective tissue and the muscle fibers. The 4 types of Swedish massage we're going to talk about today are effleurage, petrissage, cross-fiber friction, and tapotement. Effleurage is mainly the type of stroke that's used for applying oil and long gliding strokes that soothe, strengthen, and lengthen and glide and relax. Now, petrissage is more of a kneading stroke where you lift up the tissue and you're kneading and lifting and separating the tissue. And then we have cross-fiber friction, which is just what it says. You're going to cross the fibers of the muscle. So if the muscles run this way, you're going to run your hands and do the fiber friction the opposite way. That helps break up adhesions and let things relax a little bit more on a deeper level. And then you have tapotement, and tapotement is that vibrating work that you see that helps relax things on a deeper level. You have different types of tapotement. You can use your fist, you can use your fingers, and you can use the palms of your hand as a slapping type tapotement. There are different types of ways to do it, and there are even tools that you can buy that do it for you, which are really nice to have also. What we're focusing on is contacting, connecting, and clearing the deep muscle tissues and fibers of the body. When you're working with the back, when you're doing deep tissue work, usually for postural positioning and alignment, you want to work down the back and up the anterior part of the body. And most of that is because of the nature of connective tissue. It's more collagen based, and so you can realign and make connective tissue do something different. Muscle fibers want to go back to doing what they were doing, but connective tissue, we can structurally realign by doing deep tissue work. Whenever I'm doing deep tissue work, I usually want to work with a light massage lotion. You can use an oil if you want to, but make sure you don't use so much that you're sliding across the body. You want to have just enough glide that you're not pinching or pulling on them, but enough so that you can do some slow, deep integrative work. And whenever you start with deep tissue work, you always want to start with some warming up of the muscles. Don't want to ever go in too deep too fast, because the body will fight you and keep you out as a guarding mechanism. So we're just warming up the back, warming up the muscle fibers. So when you're working on the back, when you start with your deep tissue work, you can use several different types of tools. The main tools, of course, with massage work are your hands, your fists, your knuckles, your thumbs, your elbows. You can go down the back, and as you can see, I'm using hand over hand to do that deeper work. Very slowly down the back. Getting in there, breaking things up. Another area that you often want to work on here is right around the rhomboids. You can get in here, break this up. You okay with that pressure? Okay. Check in with your client, because deep work can be painful at times, and you want to make sure that you're not doing too much. He's young, so he doesn't have a lot of problems like many of us do, where we have so much stuff built up that it takes hours of deep tissue work to open anything up on us. So check across the back. You want to check your infraspinatus, check for trigger points, get in there, work on your supraspinatus, open up the trap area through here. All this can be done. You want to do it slowly and deeply. Another nice technique for doing deep work down the back is with your elbows. And you have your hands like this, and you just do a little bit of movement as you go along there. And I'm along each side of the spine. I'm not on the spine, just along the erectors. And for people that have a lot of chronic tightness in the back, that can be very effective and very helpful. Go along each side of the spine with your fingers and open that whole area up. And the main thing with deep tissue work you want to remember is to set your intention, go slow, go deep, and get feedback from your client and have them breathe through it. And the main reason for that is when you're working with muscle and fascia or connective tissue is made up of collagen fibers. Collagen gets gelatinous and thick and sticky. So what you want to do is warm it up so you have the ability to manipulate it better. So when you're working along the spine, one of the things that feels really good is I do 2 fingers down each side of the spine, slowly and deeply. You can actually go a lot more slowly than that when you're doing this at home or in your practice. Another thing that feels really good too, and it's very helpful, is to get right along the lamina groove of the spine. It's that little edge right there along the spinal column here. Get in there. And then another technique for working along the spine is to come up here with your elbows and to go just a little rocking motion on each side of the spine along the erectors, slow and deep. I use a product called fractionated coconut oil because it's very light and not very greasy. It washes out of the sheets and doesn't leave a person feeling all like greasy and overwhelmed. So when you're applying it, you want to apply it all over. Warm it up in your hands first before you put it on there. Don't just squirt it all over somebody when it's cold. That doesn't feel good. Warm it up, apply it all over, and put just enough on so that you have a nice glide, but that the person doesn't have like an inch of grease on them, because that is not a very good feeling. You don't want to be sliding all over your person. You want to have just enough glide to get some contact with their skin. You always want to start with a little bit of oil. You'll use more oil if the person has more body hair. A lot of it depends on their skin type. If they're really dry, you might need a little bit more. But you always want to use some effleurage strokes and apply the oil all over the arm first. Warm up the tissue. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to lift the arm back over. I stand over here when I do this, but for purposes of the camera, we can't do all that today. But I like to lift this back because this kind of opens up the shoulder area. You can stroke down the arm, kind of milk it down this way a little bit, and work the arm and the bicep and the tricep here when you're doing that. You can also come out to the side a little bit and do that. Another nice thing is to push it back here. This opens up this shoulder area of the arm. And you stroke back down through here. Now when you're working down here, what feels really good, especially for people that are on the computer a lot, is when you take your thumbs and get right in between these two arm bones. It feels really nice. You just kind of massage right in between them and open that up and turn the arm, and you can stroke down through here. Do all these arm muscles. You can use a little bit of cross fiber, break things up some if you need to. That always feels good. And then go on down in and do your hand from there. And then when you're finished with the hand and the arm, you always want to finish with some nice finishing effleurage strokes so that the person feels connected and whole. Make sure you smooth that out and you warm everything up with some nice effleurage strokes first. Calves can be very tender, especially in this gastroc muscle. Athletes often have a lot of trigger points and everything in here. You can probably usually nail a few right in here that they'll jump. So you want to be careful when you're working in that area. Just work in there and massage and open things up. Then you can do some petrissage motions, lifting that gastroc away from the soleus, working that. And another thing that feels good through there is to do a little bit of cross fiber friction is helpful. And then this is often nice too, just a little bit of downward stroking like that. And then I always go back through again. And you can, if you want to get real specific with the calf, you want to go slowly through there. I use both my thumbs to kind of feel the tissue and get in there, because if somebody's having a lot of calf cramping or spasms, or they're having trouble with it when they're running, you really want to get in here and do some nice deeper work in the calf muscle, but go slowly and be real careful. And if you do find a trigger point or something that makes them jump, you know, just stop, stay on it, wait for it to release, and then clear it out with some effleurage. I usually add a little bit of peppermint to that lotion because it helps refresh the feet, and they feel really nice. Whenever you're working on the foot, make sure that you do deep enough and firm enough work that you don't tickle the client. Move this out of the way so you can see. You can dig in there with your heels of your hand, or actually your knuckles. Work on that heel a little bit here. Work alongside the outside edge of the foot is helpful. And a lot of people have plantar fasciitis, where all this fascia in the bottom of the foot gets very inflamed and very sore. Doing some nice foot massage on that can help loosen that up. You can come with your thumbs through there. You know, if the person has if their feet are really thick and calloused, you can use some massage tools to get in there also. You can even use your elbow if their feet are really thick. I do have some clients like that. Their feet are like an inch thick in calluses, so. But you get in there and massage the balls of the feet. This feels really good also, is to get in there and just kind of squeeze with your fingers right there at the base of the toes. Get the base of each toe. This is also good for reflexology types things. And massage that. And then, you know, when you're finishing your massage, you also want to do more on the top of the feet also, and clear the top and spread the toes a little bit more and clear through the metatarsal area when they're face up. So whenever I'm working on the neck, go in and I do some warming up. You can do a little stretching through here like this. And then when I turn the head, I always support the head with my other hand here, and when I turn to work on the neck, get in here and work on the scalenes. Remember, you want to watch out for the carotid artery in here. You don't want to cut off their blood circulation or anything like that. We're working here and loosen all this up, follow them down into their attachments through under here. Is that too tender? You all right? Mm-hmm. Okay. If it's tender, have them breathe through it. Don't go too deep if it's too much for them. And then the other thing that's good for neck work is you can get in on the SCM. It's very tight on a lot of people, but be gentle and go carefully because it can be a very sensitive area on a lot of people. But it's, attaches in here, and you have it up here and goes into here to the mastoid. So you want to get in there. If somebody's having a lot of headaches and migraines, getting in on the SCM and really getting under that sternocleidomastoid muscle and working some adhesions can give a lot of relief for headaches and migraines. So get in there on the neck. Do a little occipital cranial base release in here. And with this, I'm just holding my fingers right here at the edge of the occiput and the neck. A lot of muscle fibers in there that need to be released, get really tight. And then you can stroke through again. Of course, you want to do the other side. Don't do just one side. Stroke through the scalenes. I always do a nice little stroke all the way down and up and through because it feels nice. With this, what you want to do when you're looking at your client, once they get on the table, you want to look at their body, of course, first of all, when they walk in and pay attention to their gait, is one shoulder higher than the other, what's going on with their body. And then once they get on the table, you want to take note. Do they have a lot of lordosis in the back or curve down here? Do they also, oftentimes the older somebody gets, the more kyphosis they have, or that hunch over in the back. If they have a lot of that going on, you may need to adjust your face cradle to accommodate that. If they have a lot of lordosis, you may need to put a pillow under their belly so their back isn't too curved when you're working on them. Also, take a look at their shoulders. Is one shoulder higher than the other? And then palpation is a main key to your assessment. Is feel the body and feel what's going on in there and where you need to work and what adjustments you might need to make in your work. And looking at all those things, palpation, observation, and looking and observing, all can help you in doing a good Swedish massage body assessment. Of course, you really want your hands to be warm. You don't want to put a stone cold hand on somebody's belly. That's not the most comfortable thing to do. I always do a little bit of oil all over the chest when I'm working on somebody just because I'm going to be eventually working up that way. But when we're talking about just abdominals, what you want to do is start with a little bit of nice sun and moon stroking, which is what we call this, when one hand goes all the way around and the other hand only makes the moon stroke. And you always want to go in the direction of the colon because you have the ascending, transcending, and descending colon. And so you always want to move in the direction of that unless the person is having loose stools, then you can go the opposite way. But other than that, you always want to go in the direction that they're intended to go in. So you can do that. Another thing you can do is just a little bit of back and forth like this, where you're lifting up, going through, and then something that we call the wave. You can just kind of wave back and forth and pull on through. Go through along with the sun and moon again. Come up through and underneath the ribs and the diaphragm area. You can kind of come through here too. Be careful because sometimes that can be a little bit tender on people, especially if they have a lot of adhesions in the diaphragmatic area here. So you want to get in there and work that area, open them up. And then you can also kind of get in there and go a little bit deeper. And remember, you're working along the pathway of the colon. And you start here and kind of work up and back down. It's because you don't want to, you always want to go in the direction that it is. And you want to clear the end of it first. So if anybody's having constipation or stomach troubles or whatever, a good abdominal massage can really help their stomach feel better and their bowels move easier, and it just helps with any kind of adhesions and stuff in the belly. And when you're working on the back, you want to go down each side of the spine, warm it up and spread your oil, come back up through the shoulder blades, across and over, give a little curve through there and warm up the neck. Always come back down through this way, and down again through here, and through and around the shoulder blades and over. That feels really good. And another thing that's really nice too is when you come over to the side and reach on through the ribs and pull on through here like this. It feels really nice. Then you can also do a little pressure across the erectors and down through and pull up through like this. Get in here on the QL, around on the shoulder, in the rhomboid area, a little squeeze on the neck area, down the back, back up through, and over and around is a nice way to begin and end a back massage for Swedish. And you can always do that again. And then do all those strokes that I showed you earlier, but do them more than once and at least 3 times, but not too much of the same thing over and over. In this particular clip, we are just going to work through the sheet because oftentimes that is how most clients are more comfortable. Some people aren't real comfortable with taking off their underwear or showing their rear end. So I just want to show you that you can do this through a sheet and still have very effective work. If people are comfortable with it, it's really nice to be able to drape them properly and get to the muscle fibers a little bit more deeply with some deeper work if they're willing to get undressed all the way. But that you kind of have to leave that up to the client. Whenever you're working on the gluteal muscles though, you want to check in and about, with the sacrum area and get in here and work around the sacral attachments. That's this, bone at the end of the spine. Here's the sacrum. And then a lot of times if people are having low back pain and issues going on, it's not just in the low back, it's around the sacrum and in the glutes. So you want to check in that area through there. Now another one that's often very tender and can cause a lot of sciatic pain that shoots down the leg is the piriformis muscle. And that's a deep inner glute muscle that's deep in underneath the gluteus maximus. And it's right usually between the trochanter, which is the hip bone, and your sacrum. You can bring your 2 thumbs in, and that's usually approximately right where it is. You can go in there and check with people. Is that tender? You're okay with that? He doesn't have a problem with it, but anybody that sits a lot, works on a computer, drives a lot, that type of thing can often have problems with the piriformis. So sink in there gently and work on that. If it's tender, lighten up a little bit and then go deeper as it releases. Then the other thing you want to do is just work the entire area because the gluteus maximus is one of the largest muscles in the body. And then you also have glute minimus and medius up in the upper part of the gluteal area. And then you also want to check in where the hamstrings attach and here also, because tight hamstrings at this gluteal area here can cause low back issues also. So just work that whole area of the gluteal muscles, check in on the piriformis, the sacro attachments, and all that area through there, and that can give some people quite a bit of relief.